Calder stood still beside the grave, the letter shaking in his hand. For a long moment, he could not breathe right. The air felt too thin, too cold. He looked down at his mother's name on the stone, then back at the page, hoping his eyes had made a mistake. They had not. He read the line again. I did not die by accident, Calder. I was betrayed. A dull ache spread through his chest. All these years, he had carried guilt like a punishment he deserved. He had blamed his last harsh words, his anger, his distance. Now that old pain was changing into something sharper, something harder. If this letter was real, then his whole life had been built on a lie. His fingers moved over the ink as if touching it might bring her back for one more minute, one more answer. The handwriting was hers. He knew every curve of it. The way she wrote his name had always been gentle, even when she was upset. He looked around the cemetery. Bare trees. Wet grass. No one nearby. Yet he no longer felt alone. He felt watched by the past itself. Calder folded the letter carefully and slipped it inside his coat. Whatever waited inside the rest of those words, one thing was already clear. He had not come here only to mourn his mother. He had come here to meet the truth. He sat in his truck with the engine off and read the letter again, slower this time. Each line felt heavier than the last. Two names stood out like dark stains on the page, Orson Vale and Dr. Harlan Sykes. Calder had known both men since childhood. They had eaten at his family's table, shaken his hand, spoken kindly at church. Now his mother's words turned those old memories into something ugly. But one line stayed with him more than the others. Ask why your father never looked me in the eye after May 14th. Calder stared at that sentence until his eyes burned. His father was gone, buried with his silence and all the things he never explained. For years, Calder had thought of him as a broken man. Now he began to wonder if broken was not the whole truth. When he got home, he went straight to the cedar chest that had belonged to his mother. He opened it with a feeling he could not name. Inside were small, ordinary things from a life once lived with care. He searched through them one by one until he found something that did not belong there, a bank deposit slip tucked inside a hymnal. It was signed by Orson Vale. The date on it was May 14th. Calder held it in his hand and felt the shape of the lie growing clearer. By evening, he knew this was no longer about memory. It was about proof. The next morning, Calder went to see Lena Crow. If anyone in Blackwater Creek remembered what others wanted forgotten, it was her. She welcomed him inside, poured coffee, and spoke to him with the same soft pity people used when they still saw him as the boy who lost his mother too soon. At first, she repeated the old story everyone knew. A bad road. A sad accident. A family ruined by misfortune. Then Calder placed the deposit slip on her kitchen table. Lena fell quiet. Her eyes fixed on the paper, and something changed in her face. When she spoke again, her voice was lower. She told him she remembered that day. She had seen his mother outside the clinic, upset and arguing with Orson Vale. Dr. Harlan Sykes had been there too, standing close but saying little. Lena said he looked nervous, not confused. Like a man who already knew trouble was coming. Then she remembered Calder's father. He had shown up later, looking pale and unsteady, like he had already lost something before anyone told him to grieve. But it was the funeral that stayed with her most. Orson had acted calm. Harlan had spoken gently. His father had not looked like a husband in mourning. He had looked like a man afraid of the dead. As Calder walked out of her house, one thought stayed with him. A lie that big does not survive alone. It took Calder 2 days to get Morel Dane to open her door. The first time, she looked through the curtain and said nothing. The second time, she told him to leave. On the third visit, he spoke his mother's name and held up the letter. That was the only reason she let him in. Her trailer was dark even in daylight. The windows were covered, and every lock on the door looked used. Morel did not waste time with kindness. She sat across from him and told him the kind of truth that had been poisoning the town for years. Orson had been stealing money through fake company payments and false records. Harlan helped hide it by changing papers and signing off on things that were never real. It had gone on for a long time because both men knew how to look respectable. His mother found part of it by accident. She thought his father would help her do the right thing. Instead, he begged her to stay quiet. He owed Orson money, and fear had made him smaller than she believed. When she refused to back down, everything changed. Morrell gave Calder a copied ledger page she had hidden for years. It matched the date and the names. It was real. Before he left, she looked at him with tired eyes and said his mother had died because she would not bend. Calder stepped outside with the paper in his hand and a hard truth settling deep inside him. His father had not only failed her. He had helped trap her. That night, Calder drove to the old farmhouse where he had grown up. The place had been empty for years. Dust covered the windows. The porch leaned to one side. Inside, everything smelled old and forgotten. He moved through the rooms without stopping until he reached the toolshed. He knew what he was looking for before he found it. Behind a row of broken seed bins sat a metal lockbox his father had always kept hidden. Calder forced it open and found loan papers, old documents, and one folded note with his name on it. He recognized his father's handwriting at once. He read every word standing up, then read it again sitting on the floor because his legs no longer felt steady. His father had known. Not everything, maybe. Not how it would end. But enough. The note said the plan was meant to frighten Alara, not kill her. She was supposed to be stopped, shaken, pushed into silence. Orson had promised it would stay under control. Harlan was supposed to clean up anything that went wrong. But something had gone wrong, and his mother had paid for it with her life. Calder sat there until the dark turned gray. He wanted to hate his father like a villain, but the truth was worse. He had been weak, afraid, and willing to let bad men lead. By morning, Calder made his choice. He would not go after Orson with rage. He would ruin him with truth. After that night, Calder stopped moving like a grieving son and started working like a man building a case. He understood now that anger would not be enough. If he wanted Orson and Harlan to fall, he needed records, dates, names, and proof no one could laugh away. So he worked quietly. He met Morrell again and copied everything she still had. He went through county files, old payments, company records, and closed business names that led back to Orson. He followed each paper trail slowly, checking where the money moved and who signed what. Every time one piece matched another, the story became harder to deny. He also visited the retired deputy who had answered the call the night his mother died. The old man tried to act calm, but his hands shook when Calder asked simple questions about the road, the report, and what had been left out. Bit by bit, his mother's death stopped looking like a tragic accident and started looking like planned damage covered by careful men. During this work, Calder met Avon Marrow, a lawyer from another county who had known his mother years ago. She listened without fear, read every paper with sharp attention, and agreed to help him prepare everything for the state. But she gave him one warning. If he let anger control him, he would destroy the case. So Calder learned the hardest part of revenge. He learned to wait. The night of the founders' banquet, Calder walked into the hall dressed like any other guest. He kept his face calm and the envelopes close to his side. Around him, people laughed, ate, and praised the same men who had lived for years behind clean names and careful smiles. Orson stood near the front like he belonged there. Harlan sat a few tables away, quiet and polished as ever. Calder watched them both and waited. When the award ceremony began, Orson stepped up to the podium and started thanking the town for its trust and support. The room was warm with applause. Then Calder stood. His voice was steady when he spoke, but it cut through the room like a blade. He asked Orson if he wanted to thank Calder's mother too. Everything changed after that. Orson tried to shut him down at once. Harlan rose from his seat as if leaving could save him. But the envelopes were already being opened. The editor of the county paper read the records. The state guest looked through the documents. Harlan's wife saw enough to understand the man beside her had hidden a terrible life. Calder did not raise his voice. He gave facts. Dates. Signatures. False records. Missing details from the night his mother died. The room turned cold. By the time deputies came in, no one was clapping anymore. The masks had slipped, and the town had finally seen the faces underneath. The investigation moved faster than Calder had expected. Orson's accounts were frozen. Harlan's medical license was suspended. Reporters showed up at every corner, and lawyers hovered like vultures. The town split quietly. Some whispered that they had always known something was wrong. Others blamed Calder for exposing secrets they wanted buried. One evening, Harlan's wife, Noreen, came to Calder's door. She carried a bag full of old letters and papers, her eyes red and swollen from crying alone. She handed him everything she had saved, including a receipt showing Harlan had been at the crash site before the accident was officially reported. She asked him a question that he could not answer. When this ends, what do people do with years spent loving the wrong man? Her words stayed with him. Calder realized revenge was not clean or simple. It affected innocent people too, and even Morel started to worry she had put herself in danger by speaking out. He understood now why his mother had fought. Alara had not acted for glory or satisfaction. She had acted because lies spread like poison through a town. Calder still wanted Orson punished, but he no longer thought that destroying him would fix everything. He learned that true justice is sharper and quieter than revenge, and sometimes it leaves scars that never heal. As Avon organized the final packet for the prosecutor, she paused. There was a line in Alara's letter Calder had never fully understood, the part about his father never looking her in the eye after May 14th. She read it again carefully. It was not just blame, it was a clue. May 14th was the day Alara discovered the fraud, yes, but also the day she discovered something about Calder himself. Avon found it in old property records linked to the shell company. Calder was not Stellan Wren's biological son. His mother had conceived him before marrying Stellan, with a man named Silas Marrow, Avon's uncle, who had died young. Stellan had raised him as his own, but the knowledge of Calder's birth had changed him in ways Calder never knew. Orson had used this secret to control Stellan, to make him weak and fearful. Everything Calder had believed about his father, the anger, the silence, the failure, now had a new weight. Stellan had not just been afraid of Orson. He had been humiliated, trapped by pride and fear, and unable to protect Alara. The revelation shifted everything. Revenge had taken a new shape. The attorney helping Calder uncover the truth was his own blood cousin. The truth had done more than punish the guilty. It had rewritten the lives of the living. Orson Vale was arrested. Charges for fraud, conspiracy, and his role in Alara's death filled the papers. Harlan Sykes took a plea deal, hoping age would soften the punishment. The town newspaper ran Alara's photograph on the front page with the headline "She deserved years ago, woman silenced after discovering local corruption." Calder should have felt victorious. In one sense, he did. The men who had hidden the truth for decades were finally exposed. But victory did not feel like joy. It felt heavier. He had stripped lies from their masks, yes, but in the process, he had lost pieces of himself, memories of his father, the comfort of his name, the belief that justice could fix what was broken. Spring came and Calder returned to Briar Hill Cemetery. He carried no flowers, only the second letter he had written and would never send. He spoke to his mother quietly, telling her he had done it, that he had made them answer. But he also admitted what the revenge had cost him. As he stood there, he finally understood what she had intended. The letter had not only set him on a path of punishment, it had led him to truth. And truth, unlike revenge, asks a man to keep living after the fire ends. Calder left the cemetery with Avon waiting, ready to face a future that was honest and his own. Everything had changed, not because his enemies fell, but because his mother had saved him from becoming them.